Can you believe it? Because we're all individuals, we all have differing opinions. What a world we live in. Unfortunately, half the time no one can accept this is the case and instead just throw their toys out the pram as soon as they learn someone else doesn't agree with their point of view. It's strange, really. Feeling a certain way about anything doesn't affect that other person, so why they go crazy is anyone's guess. The same with pro wrestling, especially when we're talking about matches. One person's classic is another's form of torture, and it can trigger great debates that go on for years. It's ridiculous. Now, I'm Simon from What Culture. This is 10 wrestling matches fans can't agree on. Number 10, The Undertaker vs. Mankind. In 1998 at the King of the Ring, The Undertaker hurled Mankind off the top of the Hell in a Cell. In 1998 at King of the Ring, The Undertaker hurled Mankind through the Hell in a Cell. Then there was a lot of other carnage that is still unbelievable to watch even today. It's brutal. The problem to some fans, though, is that Mick Foley taking these risks obliterated anything that would come after it. Foley's goal during the bout was to equal Shawn Michaels' work rate during his Hell in a Cell contest with The Undertaker. And he did achieve that through sheer spectacle. By intentionally destroying himself, Foley raised the bar to unmatchable heights, and anything since then has almost been impossible to achieve the same reaction. Does that mean it was a good match? No one will ever agree. But for the record, I love it. It's just shocking. Number 9, Bret Hart vs. Owen Hart. Going down at SummerSlam in 1994, the bizarre issue some people have with this is that there was no blood involved. So let's just forget the amazing storytelling, incredible athleticism, and the sheer joy this match is. On top of that, there's also a question of why it was held in a steel cage. After months of refusing to fight his brother, Bret had eventually snapped after Owen continued to up the ante. So why put the two in a match where the goal is to run away from your opponent and escape? In theory, that's a fair point, but it goes out the window entirely when you actually watch the thing. The Hart brothers put on a masterclass in pro wrestling, and Owen is so good he almost turns face halfway through. Thankfully, he didn't. Made all the more clear during his vicious beatdown afterwards with the British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart. There's no two ways about it though. This match is great. Number 8. Mitsuharu Misawa vs. Kenta Kobashi. Misawa vs. Kobashi is where you want to head should you enjoy suspending your disbelief when it comes to pro wrestling. Their series of matches are so hard-hitting and real, you can easily pretend they're legitimately kicking the crap out of each other. They hold absolutely nothing back. In a somewhat weird sense of irony, however, this irked some fans when it came to their AJPW 26th anniversary show in 1998. The two went in so heavy and so hard, especially Kobashi during the match's opening where he tears Misawa a new one, you started to question what you were seeing. The blows were of such intensity, there's no way another man could withstand it. Therein lies the point though. As they were pretty much beating each other up for real and still getting to their feet, the proof was staring you right in the face. They protected each other as much as they could, but ultimately, it was two men winningly beating each other up. It is crazy. Number 7, John Cena vs. The Rock. The first encounter between Cena and The Rock at WrestleMania 28 pushes people two ways. The first is that it was a modern classic with a great build that had the audience in attendance that night on the edge of their seats. The other is that it was overly long, self-indulgent, and that The Rock was gassed well too soon given the length the two were slated to go. It also didn't help that Cena was pretty much shouting spots, so even the back row could hear. The biggest problem was that the lead-up was so good, the match itself always threatened to not pay that off in the way some would have hoped. It really did seem like they both hated each other before they came to blows. I guess in many ways, just having them brawl from the off would have been a smarter choice. I still think it deserves its place in history, however. Some people just make matches larger than life, and Cena and Rock definitely did that. Number 6, Will Ospreay vs. Ricochet. It's the match that caused social media to meltdown, and for the flippy versus non-flippy argument to truly kick off. Was Ospreay vs. Ricochet from the best of the Super Juniors in 2015 nothing more than a show of athleticism? Or was it the new wave of pro wrestling summed up near perfectly? No one could decide for sure, and even Vader got in on the action, calling it nothing more than a psychology-devoid spot fest. Jim Cornette felt the same, encouraging the pair to get jobs as stuntmen in movies. Ultimately, it all really depends on what entertains you, and it's hard to say this wasn't entertaining. Could they have sold more during it? Absolutely. We could say that about a lot of modern day bouts. At the end of the day, the two are ridiculously talented and play up to their strengths. There's nothing wrong with that. Number 5, John Cena vs. Bray Wyatt. Although it's mostly remembered for yet another time where Bray Wyatt lost a major feud, his match with Cena at WrestleMania 30 did go out of its way to tell an interesting story. Wyatt was convinced that Cena's whole rise above hoopla was nonsense, and he was determined to prove it. The way he decided to do that was to goad Cena into kicking the crap out of him and being a willing participant in said beating. It would prove his point and reveal the true nature of Big Match John. The problem, however, was twofold. One, Cena was never going to turn heel. I knew that, you knew that, we all knew that. so it was hard to expect that kind of outcome, which is what the narrative really needed. Secondly, Cena had already absolutely mauled Wade Barrett at TLC the year prior by burying him in steel chairs, so we knew he had it in him. When we didn't see that kind of level at Mania, which is a sticking point for the story. It was good though. It's not what it could have been. Number 4, Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. Arguably the most famous match of all time, Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3 is considered a classic. When you watch it today, mind, you may not necessarily think that. The entire match was based around whether or not Hogan could slam Andre, so you instantly knew Andre wasn't going to leave his feet till towards the end of it. That meant you were just going to get a lot of slow-paced movements for the majority of the contest. That's exactly what we did get, and Hogan looking all pained as the Giant squeezed the life out of him. Looking at it in these terms is ridiculous though. The crowd went nuts for Hogan's trademark comeback and slam, and it filled the Superdome with thousands of people desperate to see it. So they must have done something right. Bottom line is, wrestling has evolved with time, so trying to watch this in the right context is really important. Number 3, the final deletion. Why this is up for any debate, I have no idea. All we hear in today's pro wrestling world is that people aren't trying new things enough. So when Matt Hardy created his Broken persona and subsequently the final deletion, we should have all, at least, respected his attempt. But no, we didn't. Now, obviously the final deletion is utterly different from your usual dose of pro wrestling, and it is hard to get your head around. It's nuts for one, but that was the whole point. Refusing to take anything seriously and just trying to have fun, a lot of people saw this as the ultimate death of wrestling because it held nothing back. But I don't buy into that logic. We all know what the deal is, we're all aware. Because of that, things such as this can exist. When they're this entertaining, I'm alright with it. I like to laugh, and man, did this make me laugh. So weird, it's hard to know where to start. Number 2, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. At Survivor Series 2016, Goldberg was going to lose to Brock Lesnar. Obviously, Goldberg was only coming back for the one match, and Lesnar was Lesnar. His whole role was to beat people up and get victories. And then that didn't happen. Instead, the returning Goldberg destroyed Lesnar in less than 2 minutes and came across like a monster. While it certainly was shocking, it also sent some individuals into meltdown as they accused WWE of giving away Brock's magic to a 49-year-old man. All that build, all that heat, wasted. Thing is, it wasn't wasted. Playing off the whole overconfident angle, WWE has set up another match for down the line, and it should be one with a tremendous amount of intrigue and interest. Admittedly, you can be a bit annoyed it was so short, but that only made it feel all the more real. That happens in the UFC all the time. The destruction comes out of nowhere. It wouldn't work all the time, but as a one-off, count me in. Number 1, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. One of, if not the most famous Iron Man matches in history, Hart and Michaels going for a whole hour at WrestleMania 12 is considered a classic. It resulted in HBK's first ever world title win and proved how good both men were. I mean, who else could go 60 minutes and not make an entire audience fall asleep? What people weren't sure on was the fact they got through the entire running time without trading a fall. In many ways that makes sense. You never see an early pinfall in a regular match, so why would you hear just for the sake of entertainment? On the flip side to this, however, was the inkling that this only happened because two fierce real-life rivals didn't want to trade falls to each other. If they had, maybe this would have been a touch more exciting. It is good though, it's just not the best match the two had, even if it is the most well-remembered. Know of any other matches that people can't decide on? Let us know in the comments below, and then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can even come tell me on Twitter at SimonMiller316. I'm Simon from What Culture, and I loved all the matches on this list, because I'm that guy.